Greetings. Um, I have a few things I want to try to talk about a little bit based on things that people have asked me questions about and stuff. And anyway, um, and I got the new asteroid or the new dwarf planet, which I have to actually search on the name for. It's Haumea. Hello there. I see there's somebody tuning in. Yeah, dwarf planet Haumea. I'm not sure how to say it. I didn't realize it was such an oval egg shape. No, wait, that's not the one. That was recently. Let me see here. News. Asteroid almost hit Earth last night. I didn't hear that. Somebody put that in the search. Giant asteroid flew past Earth closer than the moon last night. I didn't realize that. Daily Mail. They're not a sarcasm site, or although they have their well, they're not as much like an Inquirer, but they're a little bit leaning in that direction sometimes. But some people might say that anyway. I don't know. But it says here that giant asteroid passed just 120,000 miles from the Earth last night and was only spotted 24 hours earlier. Huh. And they called it 2017 AG13. Was only spotted on Saturday by University of Arizona's Catalina Sky Survey. It is between 50 and 111 feet long, 15 to 34 meters. And this near-Earth object came within half the distance that the moon is from the Earth. That might be the closest anyone has come. of the asteroids that were near misses. I was waiting for it to see if there was going to be another near miss because Tiendo did it in 2013, and then they did it again in 2017, I think. Maybe it's even a third one. That was within the moon's orbit. That's close. As the universe goes, the way scientists think about it, it's like, the first kind of near miss that I knew about, I think was in the 90s. I think I was still in the classroom when it was a near miss. Or maybe I was just right out of the classroom in 1995 or a late 4 or something. I'm not sure. And when individuals wonder about what's happening in the world, these things aren't looked at. I don't believe they're looked at casually by the powers that be on this planet, the humans and their empires. So the idea that they were building tunnels underneath the ground it's all commonsensical when you look at the way they were building bomb shelters even when I was a kid. My vehicle is 68 years old. Anyway, but so I'm not saying anything that anybody that's new to a lot of people that are visiting, that might visit this channel. I know that, but then again, there might be somebody that is kind of new to it, and this is kind of difficult to wrap their head around that the next level exists and space aliens exist and this incarnate world exists, the world of spirits and ghosts and all that, and that that we have been sold a bill of goods that was inaccurate in the religions because it wasn't teaching the purpose of the religions, which was to share the qualifications to be in an astronaut training program held by the designers of the planet for that purpose. It's like common sense to think that something as grand as this planet and all the life forms on it would be developed out of thin air for no reason. That's like the most illogical thing that anybody could actually believe, considering the vast amount of evidence of intelligent design and with systems working within systems that are dependent upon one another. You need oxygen, you need the recirculation of the water, you need all the weather patterns, the heat from the sun's got to be at a certain spot, not too much, not too little, and have the changing of the seasons so that you have the growing seasons and the harvest seasons. Everything's duplicated in the next level program that they put together to give humans the opportunity to become crew members in an environment that is circulating throughout outer space, deep outer space, not just this piddly, within the moon's orbit. I don't know if the next level would consider the moon to be part of the area that the space aliens can go to. Perhaps because humans have been there, maybe it is an indication that they can go there because they can go inside that spacecraft and nobody would even see them. and try to hide away. I'm talking about a physical plasma-like being. The Blob. The movie The Blob. But what was the relationship with that movie and that fungus that they found that they call in the Blob, that is like a fungus, but it grows back and it moves like a veiny. It's like a veiny plant form that has different colors and stuff. And it was taken from the movie The Blob that was going through the subways and the sewer system of New York City. Or maybe it was Japan. I don't know how I got into that, but so it's difficult to make the adjustments to drawing in to our minds the overview that Tiendo provided and Tiendo and crew provided, because they weren't alone. They came like Jesus said when he came back, the kingdom was coming back. He didn't say just he was coming back. He said the kingdom was coming back. And the kingdom meant that it was a many-membered team with a hierarchy of older members. And the older member, T, the admiral, the chief administrator of the planet, according to Do. See, Do witnessed to T's reality, and T witnessed to Do's reality. See, that's the way the next level does it. They don't witness to themselves and say, I'm a big shot. I mean, they do say that, but they say it gingerly and slowly, and they tell their disciples more, the students more than they tell the general public, because if they told the general public everything, they would be crucified faster. They would be shot down in the streets faster, like happened in 1975. Not literally shot down, but they were ready for that, and it could have went that way. The next level designed it so it could have went that way. Exactly the way that it was the humans translated it to be. The two witnesses shot down by the beast. And the beast is, the mouthpiece of the beast is the media. The dragon's mouth on earth is the media. And the Luciferian, space alien, fallen angel souls are the ones that are groom humans to do their bidding. Not all humans are being groomed necessarily, but the next level keeps a balance so that we have the choice. Hi, Falcon, in the chat room. How is it going, Sawyer? It's going okay. I didn't even know about the asteroid. That just was a near miss until I logged in here. And I was looking for the name of the new dwarf planet that we saw. So we saw two big events since my last live stream. Two huge events. The new dwarf planet, which I forgot the name of, and that's why I was going on the internet to try to find it. I think it starts with an H, but I don't think it's Hamus. H-A-U, how do you say that? Hamia. I wonder if that's another Hawaiian name. Maybe because of the observatory that first discovered Hamia. There's one, the big one that said that there was no object with the Hale-Bopp comet, because they either airbrushed it to look differently, or they just said it was a lens flare or something. I'm not sure exactly what they said now. I don't remember exactly. But but thank goodness that the Japanese took photographs and provided them. And I've got one of those things posted on my one of my other screens. And so now there's a near-miss asteroid that was within the moon's orbit. If you didn't tune in when I first talked about that, there was 120,000 miles from the Earth last night. Last night meaning this was written, this was published January 2017. Okay, now looks like I'm sharing misinformation. I'm sorry. This is the one that happened in January 2017. So erase. There wasn't a new near-miss asteroid. I know when I was reading this, I was thinking to myself, before I even got to this Daily Mail site, I was wondering if the little message that I received in the Google search, I guess it was like a phony story. I just had that feeling and then when I went to it and I saw there was Daily Mail, I knew they were not irreputable necessarily broadcast, even though they do have their more risque kind of broadcasting. I don't know if that's the way to say it, to describe it. But anyway, so that's referring to that one. Okay. So it's not but there is a new dwarf planet. They haven't actually decided whether it's supposed to be the largest asteroid. Is that right now? Or am I going to get more misinformation? I guess I should do my research on that. But I don't remember if it's bigger than Ceres. I think Ceres is the biggest one. The biggest asteroid. So this other one looks pretty interesting. And the thought I had when I saw that for the first time, which I posted here in my images here on the top middle of the screen, is white. The white circular object. To the left of it is the new comet that came in from interstellar space not too long ago, just in October. And here we are in this new object at the end of October. Forgot the date for the discovery of that. But the thought I had about it when that happened was, I wonder if that came with the comet. Like the object that came with the Hale-Bopp comet was called the companion object. That Doe said it didn't matter if it existed or not. He knew that the Hale-Bopp comet was the sign that he had been waiting for from 1975, that he and T were waiting for. That the sign of which is the sign of the Son of Man as lightning shines from east to west, because that's the way we see it over the ecliptic. So the Hale-Bopp comet didn't come from interstellar space. It came from, I guess, the Oort cloud, or maybe another area. I'm not sure. I don't remember that well, that detail. But Um, so let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Talk. Well, the space aliens grooming humans, that was Tiando's teachings, that the space aliens were the souls that were hybridizing human or vehicles that they could occupy, take over, and using human DNA, eggs and sperm. That's why they have all those sex things that were happening on the spacecrafts that some of the abductees talked about. A number of them talked about that. They had sperm removed. It was painful. They put something down their penis. The next level doesn't need to do that. The human kingdom is exactly where the human kingdom is supposed to be. So they don't need to get sperm from the humans to try to build a new vehicle, because they've got billions of them on the planet. But the space aliens go after the ones that are most like them. So they go after the ones that believe in all this, because the ones that, even if to a little degree, are just a curiosity. It doesn't. That's the same thing, but it's a stage of it, and we're all in various stages of it, and we can all have our minds blown in the same way by the same material, even though we've even heard material over and over again. We can come to a new understanding of it that has us recognize that that we didn't understand it to begin with. Now, Tiando talked like that about the lessons that they were giving us. They would say that if this is 50%, if we've got 50% of this right, we feel like we're doing good. And so if you get 50% of what we're giving you, you're doing good. So that means that if we get 25% of the understanding of the lesson steps they were giving us, and you can watch the Black Hawk tapes to see this, to listen to this, because everything they said had value. Everything. And I don't have to just say that because I believe it. I can say it because you can talk about the value of everything they said, and you can show that it's got a number of values to it. And they even give us the reasons to not believe in them. Okay, Falcon is saying in the chat room, could these ships be somehow the vehicles of these entities that the Bible was talking about? Maybe Lucifer is a ship or a crew then? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that Tiando were teaching that 100%. That UFOs in the next level can actually be grown on a vine, like a plant, to maturity, to where it can serve as a vehicle for a crew. Now, the other part of it, but the Luciferians can't do that. So Lucifer himself isn't a ship, isn't a spacecraft. Lucifer is a soul, is an individual, is somebody that came from the equivalent of a human kingdom. But potentially from a different planet originally, and was brought to like those thought that it was brought to the Earth to have the opportunity to go to take an astronaut training program. But that might not actually be the individual that I'm talking about as Lucifer. But that might be the replacement of the individuals that are called Lucifer and those that broke away from the next level and went against the next level from a previous civilization on Earth. Because Doe talked about how because of Lucifer's action of breaking away from the next level by breaking instructions and influencing humans, that they were just given instructions to observe, to be the watchers of, according to the words that Enoch used. And Enoch was Doe in a previous incarnation. So, according to T. And so Lucifer was the leader of the individuals that broke away. And they were dropouts, like I'm a dropout. Although I think they got to the stage of having elementary lessons to learn. No, I'm sorry. Having elementary service to give to the next level. And they grew to that point to where the next level would take their soul that was developing in the human kingdom or a human equivalent kingdom. That's the way Tiendo talked about it. On a different planet. But I guess that could be also the same planet, the same civilization. I'm not sure whether Lucifer's soul was born on the Earth, but I think he wasn't. I think he was born on the same planet that perhaps Doe's soul came from. Perhaps a different star system. But I don't want to go into all the reasons I'm saying that. I'm saying perhaps, because when I say that, that means that I don't know it, obviously. And as opposed to saying things as a fact that is because Tiendo said something or a number of things to indicate it. And I don't qualify everything that I believe came from Tiendo. I do say that Tiendo said this, but that doesn't mean that they said those exact words. And it doesn't mean that I can't get some of that wrong too. So that's why I'm not 100% trustworthy in that regard. But I think I'm in the ballpark to where even if it's 50%, I think it can be of value to people. I'm not sure that's the right way the way that Tiendo would have me have the analogy of the 50-50-50, like they were talking about, how we can understand things. But I recognize that anything Tiendo said in all the tapes that they made, I don't know if I was getting 50% of what they were giving. I don't think I was. I know I wasn't, actually. I'm not saying that there weren't students there that were getting 50% of what they said. I believe that there were. I think the elder students were getting it. And I could have been one of those elder students. I don't know. I mean, Doe said that I was on the Beyond Human tape. And the vehicle, the soul I'm talking about in this vehicle. So I really don't have an excuse of saying that I could have done better. That's a fact. And so I'm not at all pleased with myself in relation to, not at all. In fact, I'm very disturbed with myself, actually. But I'm like caught. My vehicle is caught to the lower forces to some degree of still, having human behaviors. And that doesn't mean that that's wrong. And we all can potentially, that's why, we were told through the religion that the records talked about how that everybody is a sinner. Well, that's true, because everybody falls short of the qualifications to become a member of the next level. That's what that means. The next level intentionally makes it very difficult to stay on it. And so that when we fall, we get another chance. And how many chances do we get? Well, Jesus said that how many times do you forgive your brother or sister in that regard? Even though he didn't say that it was a multi-gender word. I don't think they have a multi-gender word. Anyway, but I might be wrong about that. But you forgive them, like, was it 7 times? Which I think was from the Old Testament? Or that was the amount of times you said an oath, to make an oath. You repeated it to yourself or said it out loud 7 times to imprint it upon our vehicles. But Jesus said, no, not 7 times, 70 times 7. So that, I imagine that same pattern might be an example of how many times the next level will forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those that trespass against us, according to that Lord's Prayer that Jesus gave. That people that do things to us that are not right, we are taught to forgive them because they don't know what they do. If they knew what they were doing, they wouldn't do it when they were harming somebody else. Now, the person that the humans see as the victim of somebody that's doing something terrible, harming somebody physically or mentally even, which mentally is mentally, like by giving them drugs and, messing with their consciousness, their ability to perceive what's true and false. That's the negative that the Luciferians are messing with, and that humans are taught by the Luciferians to mess with. And so therefore there's a whole bunch of discarnates that are also doing that to humans. And I know I keep on going into different things, different characteristics, different aspects of this body of information that T and Doe gave us, that you can all see it for yourself when you go on and read the Heaven's Gate book and listen to the tapes. And everybody that wants to really know about T and Doe, that's the first place to go. And but if you don't come to those tapes through that avenue, and you came to me first, in terms of, or anybody else that's talking about T and Doe from their personal experience, like Carl Odie, and like Mark and Sarah, Mercodi and Serafodi, and Rio, Neody, and anybody that has had any knowledge of Rick Odie and Pip Odie and Oscar Odie and uh, uh, not Odie, and who are all dropouts like me, except for not Rick Odie. And just Odie, who was a dropout as well as Rick Odie was a dropout a number of times. But he kept on going back because he never disbelieved in Tiendo. He just couldn't cut the mustard in terms of dealing with the discipline of not being able to go and do something when he wanted to do something. The boredom of it, the boredom of the vehicle would feel. And so he kept on leaving, but he loves his older member. He loved his older member the whole time, and I'm not saying that all the individuals I just mentioned don't love their older members. They do. I know some of them now that but some have turned against Tiendo, but I don't know if they in different ways and to different degrees, and it doesn't mean that they're going to have to stay that way. They don't have to stay that way. As long as they're in a vehicle, they have the chance to change that. If they've left their vehicle, then the next level had a different strategy for those individuals, like Dance Odie and Park Odie and Eck Odie, and who left their vehicles already. So being a dropout isn't like it's not a death sentence, but the lessons to get back on track have to be harder. And I think being in the human kingdom, for all I know, I might be doing okay compared to what we're all facing in the human kingdom that we're all used to. Is the way it is. It's the we get into things and we hopefully get out of things. The object of the whole program is to get into the human kingdom thoroughly and then get out of it in the sixth grades in school. And the next level helps us with that by taking things away. And, so we lose loved ones, we lose our own life, we lose our health, we lose our careers. Sometimes, the stock market crashes and we lose it all, and is that going to mean that we can't live anymore? Are we just going to throw in the towel and jump off a building? No. For many of those things that happen, the answer isn't to commit suicide. Suicide for the next level members that were graduating has a different, it ultimately doesn't have a different meaning, but the stages of that meaning, like for Tiendo and the classroom of 38 students plus potentially 4 or 5 that I know about, was not returning to the next level when they had the opportunity to. That doesn't mean that it's automatically suicide, because the opportunity is extended. It's an extended period of time that Doe said the window was still open. So because I didn't leave with them and anybody else that didn't leave with them, doesn't mean that we can't experience our graduation into our next best step. It doesn't mean that our next best step will be the same place as other students that graduated was, but it can be. And Doe said that some of those 38, more than one, I think he said it was plural, would have to return to the human kingdom to finish their overcoming. So it doesn't really matter who those were, whether they were the ones that were the 24 elder students, or a new student that might have been a soul, an elder soul. Okay, if you want to put it that way. Now, elder doesn't have to do with time. Elder has to do with experience in the overcoming process. So in other words, what's accomplished is how the next level judges it. They don't judge it by how long it took you to get there. Once you get there, you're in the same place as everybody else, although they might have been there before you in the next level. So therefore, they have more experiences that we don't have. So the next level came with individuals that had next level vehicles on the spacecraft, and it came with individuals that did not have next level vehicles on the spacecraft, and they had which would mean that they didn't have any vehicle at all. I think that's what that means. And that's the way Tiendo described it, that there were individuals without vehicles in the briefing before they came. Before they came, well, I don't need to say more than that, I guess. I believe that briefing is depicted in Revelation chapter 4 or 5. I got to go to it because I don't think I've ever gone to that before. And so let me change my screen here for a second. Maybe I didn't finish answering that question, though, or that statement, or those questions in the chat room. Could these ships be somehow the vehicles of these entities that the Bible was talking about? Right, I can say more about that, like Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel, right? And it was living. It was like they said it was like a living, and it was. I think that was the next level. I don't remember if Tiendo actually. What the heck is that? Oh, okay. Sorry. I guess they want to get rid of me here on this. Let me close that website. Wow, it took them a long time before they gave me one of those ads, forced it on me. But yeah, the way that Tiendo described the only event that I remember Tiendo using as an example of a next level spacecraft in the Bible was talking about it as a cloud of light. Now, the cloud of light is what, so the Ezekiel event, I don't remember whether Tiendo indicated that they suspected that was a next level spacecraft or living being, but it may very well be. They did say that next level grows vehicles that can be spacecrafts, so they're living being vehicles. But they're piloted by a soul that is a living being in a different way. See, I shouldn't really use that same terminology the same way because the vehicles can die. Well, they make vehicles that are perishable and they make vehicles that are imperishable. And they make robots too, to go to places where that the vehicles would die if they went to them. I think like the sun might have been an example of a robot, more robotic vehicle. I say that might because I don't think Tiendo gave when I heard him say that, I don't think they used the sun as an example, but they might have. Because, like I said, I don't think I got 100% of everything they said. That's an example of it. Because what I'm talking about is like, because they gave us things in pictures. I mean, they didn't actually sit down with us and show us a picture and say, this is what we're talking about. No, they didn't do that. But their thoughts were multifaceted. And could be explained in different ways relative to those different facets. And so Doe many times he would come to us with a lesson step and say, I've got to approach this in several different ways. In fact, the Black Hawk tapes, I think, is an example of that. That I'm going to have to approach this from different angles. So that's what I'm talking about. So we can get a real-time example of how Tian Do were teaching in a multidimensional way. It's not really multidimensional the way that humans depict it, as, but it is at the same time, because like plasma bodies that are intelligent creatures, that are humanoid shaped even, because they said that the soul was actually bigger than the vehicle. So if it's bigger than the vehicle, then you can imagine that it might have the shape of the vehicle if it was, depending on how big it had grown. But I guess that would produce a roundness to it. I don't know exactly. But a next level member's vehicle looks like, I guess I got to change screens for that. I'm going into so many different directions here at the same time, but maybe I'll get back to crossing some T's and dotting some I's. I think I will. I'll try to, because I'll keep on going back to the chat room, and that'll help remind me. Because otherwise I'd probably lose it. But I wanted to go to this other screen. And then put this up. Why isn't this working? That's working. Oh, because I'm already in the place I want to be. No, I'm not. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I got confused a second here. There, this screen. The screen shows, for anybody that might be new to this broadcast, the screen shows a lot of things, and one of them in the top left corner is what an older member's vehicle might look like. Okay, so I think that would be an imperishable vehicle, probably. I don't know that for a fact, though. But also being perishable and imperishable has to do with whether the vehicle has a task. Like, for instance, whether the vehicle is chosen to do a task that requires a certain type of vehicle. So in other words, if the next level members needed to do a task on Earth is a dense atmosphere, and it's a decaying atmosphere. It's also a recycling of that decay, but the whole thing, everything is built to die and go through transformation in that way. So everything is an imperishable vehicle, an example of it. And so the next level might give a student or a young member of the next level, or even an older member of the next level, a vehicle to use for a task they were doing on the earth. And so, and I think an example of that is how they said that Tiendo believed that that the vehicle that the individual that was called Jesus took was a like a genetic engineered, like a test tube baby, to where they didn't say any more than that. They just said it was prepared for doing that task, and they thought it was some form of what we would think of as genetic engineering, which also would be, I guess, like the cloning aspect of taking the rib from Adam's vehicle. Whether it was actually a rib or representative of a rib, I don't know. Maybe Adam does have. Well, yeah, he would, because Jesus said his vehicle that he had after he repaired it, because it's characteristic of a member of the next level, according to T, to be able to repair a human vehicle in 3.5 days. Even though I think he said that he was not a spirit, he was flesh and bone. A spirit isn't flesh and bone. I think that's what he said. I hope I'm not misremembering that. But if anybody knows these verses that I'm talking about and they see that I'm misremembering something, I'd like them to bring it to my attention. Same thing with anything you read that Tiendo said. If you see something that I'm saying that seems different from what they were teaching, I mean, it's going to be different potentially in some of the words, and but if the intention seems to be different, bring it to my attention. If you think the words should be the same as well, bring it to my attention anyway. I don't care, because I can always examine it and I can always get more of that 50% from it. So correction is something that every student of the next level has to be able to receive without being defensive. And defensiveness is something to overcome. Some have a bigger dose of it than others. It's not any worse or any better than all the other dosages of different characteristics of the human kingdom. Now, it's not automatically defensive if you say something about it. But the way it was in the classroom, some people were defensive, so that they would be saying something about, well, you do that too, or something like that. You know what I mean? How people can be when they're criticizing one another. And so Tiendo, because of that, made the instruction so that it was procedure to say, thank you, I'll examine that. But that didn't mean the person couldn't ask questions to try to understand what the person was criticizing them about. Because they weren't supposed to criticize them about something that was not on the docket, on the instruction sheets, on the 17 steps that's posted in the Heaven's Gate book if anybody wants to see it, and also on my blog. I'd search for the number 17 steps, but you can search on the Heaven's Gate website also for that. I don't know if you can search there. Well, I guess if you have a web page then you use Control F to search, but I don't know if it'll be all in one spot. It probably is. It's probably one HTML document. So that should probably work. I'm just thinking out loud about, the different options there. So, well, you can download the text. I suggest anybody that's serious about wanting to learn Tiendo's information, definitely download the text from the Heaven's Gate website, or send me your email address to SawyerHG. Let me put that in here while I'm thinking about it. And I'll send you the packets. Or you can also listen to the tapes or download tapes from the For Shared site that Carlotti posted many years ago. And you can listen to some of the tapes on my live streams. That usually in the description of the title of the tapes on my live streams, usually I tried to put in a timestamp of when I started to play the tapes, because a lot of times I talked about things that like I'm talking about right now before I started to play a tape, and then sometimes very rarely did I leave commentary. I was accused of leaving commentary, and so I was accused of. That was one of the criticisms of me. That I shouldn't put commentary with when I play a tape. And I don't think I did actually make comments about the tape very often. But when I did, I don't know that was wrong. I did it after the tape. I didn't do it as the tape went. That would be wrong, I believe. I mean, not wrong in absolute wrong, okay? But I think it's best to provide the tape in its entirety, to give someone the benefit of that experience without having me try to potentially dilute it to some degree, because it's almost automatic that I'm going to dilute it. It doesn't mean that's a bad thing, though, because that's what I was talking about. Doing a task for the next level on Earth is automatically a dilution from what that, like Tiendo, by having vehicles, were restricted to the mind that they designed to be provided to that vehicle to draw on, so that it can do the task that was provided by the next level for that individual when they come with their plasma body and take over a human vehicle. Tiendo didn't actually call it a plasma body, and Badeau described it in 1994 as like a plasma. He didn't say it was exactly what humans are calling plasma. I'm just getting hit by these different influences. These influences don't want me to talk at all. They don't want me to do these live streams. They don't want me to talk about my experience with Tiendo. They only want me to, they'd rather have me do nothing in this regard to the public eye. Because they know it's toxic to them. Next level information is toxic to them because their agenda is self-centered. They want what they want. They want to get off this planet, and they want souls to take with them, if they can get off this planet, that can be in their crew, their kingdom. So they want to find another Earth. Because rumor has it, rumor has it among them, each other, among what we're calling the space alien people, that their days are numbered, even as souls, not just the physical, because they lost their original physical vehicle that the next level provided them with, as well as any vehicles that the next level allowed them to take over in the human kingdom to do their bidding, like Paul seemed to have experienced. Even though it doesn't mean that the vehicle Paul and the mind that was growing in that individual was lost. Doesn't mean that necessarily, I don't think. It might mean that. And it doesn't mean that everything Paul said was not of value, not representative of things that Jesus was teaching, and that Paul would have heard from the students of Jesus. So the real Jesus we're talking about, not the fabricated Jesus that is the head of the Christian religion now. That's the phony Jesus. That's the Jesus that came to Paul. That's a Luciferian space alien Jesus. So the people that say that created by the Illuminati or created by the Freemasons are not off the track, because the Freemasons are a lot of the individuals, the bankers and the people that have the most influence over humans. And those are the ones that Tiendo said, the Luciferian space alien, the Luciferians, and which includes Lucifer and the others that dropped out because of him or with him, or taking over, the ones that have the most influence over humans. So they're the ones that become the heads of the religions and the different sects of the religions, and do the preaching and or get more members into their cult. But their cult really isn't a cult, because a cult is a subculture, according to Doe. It's important to get to the root meanings of these words, because otherwise they take on the meaning of the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls, what they want us to think the meaning of those words mean. That cult is Jim Jones, which they were, because they were like a subculture. They went into the jungle and they tried to live as a commune in the jungles of Guyana. So that's a different culture than the American and European culture that lives in all these houses and communities, but they don't even know each other half the time. The people that are living right next to them. because they don't socialize with people that live right next to them. I mean, so they do. I mean, but I mean, there's people that live. Oh, I live on 10 acres, and the plots that are around me are also 10-acre plots. And I mean, I know my neighbors, and some of my neighbors have done favors for me, and I've done favors for them, and on both sides of me. And but I don't socialize with them. And we don't think the same way necessarily, but of course a lot of people don't think the same way as I think, because I had that unique experience with T and Do, and that's the same experience that everybody can have right now. The same experience relative to their own growth. It's not the amount of time. The 19 years that I spent isn't necessarily reflective of experience. And it can be individuals in the world right now that have more experience than I have in the overcoming process. Christine taught that the next level doesn't hold back people from what they want to become. They encourage people to grow as fast as they want to grow. In the human kingdom, that's not the way it is. If there's someone up and coming, the humans fear the loss of their job. So they don't want people to grow faster than they're growing in whatever their field is. And employers don't want to pay humans to do jobs more than they have to many times. So they don't make any bones about getting rid of somebody who they can hire somebody to do the same job but they don't have to pay as much, because when you start somebody off new, you get away with paying them less. Now it happened to me. My boss told me that, and he actually gave me a contract after he laid me off. Well, because I had experience. Hello? I'm doing a live stream. So, wow, so the reason I'm saying all this is because I know the influences that we can all deal with that would try to hold us down. Like, that influence that says, oh, well, if I can't do it all, then I guess I'm not material for this astronaut training program. But that's not true, because we don't know what we're up against, Tiendo taught. So we can't judge one another, and we can't even judge ourselves, because we don't know exactly what influences were dealt us. But what we do know is that the influences that are allowed to test us, we are capable, with the next level's help, of conquering them and kicking them out, taking over the horse and getting rid of other riders of that horse that are trying to be riders. And we're filled with the discarnate world of dead humans, spirits, that want to continue to do the same things that they did when they were living with even the same individuals that they grew up with, or in their same family unit, or the same friends that they had if they left that family unit and formed new relationships, or with the same belief system, it's all and/ors, or with the same skills. Like, let's say they became an excellent guitar player. So there's all kinds of discarnates that gravitate to the human vehicles that play guitar and help them learn to play that instrument, because they actually are lending them energy, motivation. And then the satisfaction that the influence gets is when that individual plays that guitar, then they are drawing off the sensual experience of that. They become like leeches on humans. Sucking our energy. And if they didn't suck the energy from us, if we were able to get rid of them and still, it doesn't mean that, well, I don't know what it means. I shouldn't go there, because I don't think the next level has literal physical instruments the way we have them here. Like the way they depict them, as floating around playing harps. Those are the discarnates that are floating around playing harps. But the way the next level uses that symbology, the harp is actually the vehicle that soul body is using. The soul body being depicted as like the little angel that's floating, right? Because soul bodies do. They're not restricted to being right on the earth. That's why Jesus was able to take that vehicle up into that spacecraft. He was demonstrating that he could defy gravity with that vehicle that he had. Now, I don't know if he did that all entirely himself. Tiendo didn't talk about it to that detail, or if the next level helped him do that. I don't know, to what degree the vehicle changed. The vehicle might not have been capable of changing. Well, no, it became a next level. It healed it, so it became a next level vehicle. And that might even be the vehicle that it comes back with for the seventh and final closeness that Tiendo talked about to be seen in the book UFO Missionaries Extraordinary, which they didn't write, but they were the subject matter of Brad Steiger and Hayden Hughes. Hayden Hughes had an organization in Oklahoma City that Tiendo visited and gave him interviews. And then Brad Steiger was associated with that. And so he did an interview in 1976 after Tiendo felt like they were shot down by the press. So then they were talking about it as if we are to demonstrate overcoming death. Because at that point they knew that the shooting down in the press was what was talked about in Revelation chapter 11. That was pertaining to the way the direction was going in terms of how that blueprint was designed it's a flex blueprint. It's not a blueprint, it's a living, I don't mean it's a living blueprint, but in a sense it is, because it's mind. It's composed of mind, so it's like a chunk of frequency information. And that's the way next level members communicate with one another, through their minds, not in words. their language is a language of ideas that have uh, uh, that trigger all the same. Well, I don't understand how it's actually done, so I was going to try to guess, but um, that trigger the images, I think, in the brain. I guess maybe even are those images in the brain rather than the brain actually. Because Tindo did teach that there's genetic mind as well that's growing off of each vehicle's spirit is that genetic mind. And it's misinformation mind. But it potentially has a percentage of it can be a next level mind. And we're talking about mind as information. That's the best way to understand it. And the way it was talked about by Jesus was that he taught to his disciples was the word. My words. What I'm saying actually is my mind. It's a reflection. It's an interpretation of my mind. It's an expression of the mind. That's why they gave those illustrations in symbology. And so Tiendo talked about it as the song, the piano roll. That was the words that they didn't say song at first. They said that the lesson steps were like a piano roll, talking about all the notes on the piano keyboard, all the white and black notes. And so like one lesson was like to not be defensive would be like a lesson step. So that's one note on the piano roll. And then once you learn that, not to be defensive, then simultaneously you're getting other lessons, and but you get a new one, and the new one might be to make every word count. Try to make every word count, not just say things that aren't relative to the thought that we're trying to put out. And the way that Tiendo gave us lessons on that in the classroom was by having a short period of time to where we didn't talk at all. We didn't use any words, and we were allowed to write something down once in a while if we were really having trouble communicating. But let's say, the example of it was when we were living in tents outdoors in Wyoming, and they started a project to where you would change tents and go to a different student's tent. And I was just thinking about that in a different way. See, more than 50%, right? The way they chose the people that you were going to the tent of. But while we were in the tent, somebody else's tent, then at that time we were preparing our own food. Tiendo would give us money, and we'd go to town. And this was like about 100 of us. And we'd go to town in Laramie, Wyoming, and shop for whatever foods we wanted. They didn't give us any rules on that. That first, I don't know how long it was before, maybe it was 9 months. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it that way. In terms of, but they did other things in 9 month periods. So I don't know if that was like like certain lesson steps, but so not talking, and then after a week or two of that, at most, I think, maybe even less than that. Maybe it was even just a couple, 3 or 4 days, maybe just like 3 days of no words at all. That they instigated that we could use keywords. But the example I was going to give you was, let's say someone wanted to prepare food for the people that were, for the two individuals in that tent. We had two people to a tent, or three if the numbers worked out in an odd way. So so then the procedure would be to try to come to a decision on what to eat as a partnership. So the person whose tent it was, the way they would do that when we weren't using words would be just hold up the bag of rice as opposed to the bag of pasta. And so there didn't have to be any talking. We weren't trying to read each other's minds. Tiendo don't do that. They didn't try to read our minds, and next level members don't try to read our minds unless we want them to. If we open ourselves up and say, yeah, next level, give me your thoughts on this. Let's say someone asks a question about Heaven's Gate at a bar or something, okay? Wherever it is. And, I heard, they were a CIA mind control program, which is actually a rumor that was started by somebody. Probably like a bit of misinformation, maybe put out by the CIA, who knows? What was the example I was getting at? Oh boy. See, an image comes into my head and I'm getting tired, so I lose my train of thought. I'm not going to try to get it back. It'll come back eventually, maybe, maybe not. So who knows how many different branches I took to the initial thought that I started out at. I know I find myself going back, and I don't listen to these. I don't know. But maybe if you know where I left off, and you want to tell me in the chat room, that would help. That would help me, because I don't really want to leave loose ends. I wouldn't start talking about something if I didn't think it was of value to the whole Tiendo picture. So there's a lot going on here in the chat room. So the way I say, back to Falcon, what Falcon said, so maybe Lucifer is a ship. I think I said that I believe that Tiendo would say that Lucifer is an individual. And you can hear them talking in the Black Hawk tapes about Lucifer as an individual, and not as a spacecraft. And Tiendo used the word spacecraft. It doesn't. I'm not saying that ship isn't. They didn't use that sometimes, but when you hear me talking about spacecraft, then that's what they talked about it the most. I'm not saying it's wrong to say ship, but I try to stick to what Tiendo's words were as much as possible, even though it might be insignificant in that way. But that's kind of like my little check and balance to try to use that terminology as much as possible. or a crew, then yes, they became a crew, but then you'd be talking about them as the Luciferians. Tindo did say that they had associates, in other words, dropouts, that went with him, with Lucifer. He also said that the next level still loves Lucifer, and that, but he has grown so far away from the next level mind that he had that he can't perceive the next level anymore as a reality. I believe my view of that is that he sees, and Tindo might have said this, he sees the next level as just another space race. And, who knows how many space races are represented on Earth right now. There might be a lot. There may be just a few. Well, there could be a number from one different planet, that are, and they are forming the different groups. And they can even be in charge of different countries. It doesn't mean that they're working together. They could be on opposite ends, opposing one another, like the Republicans and the Democrats, like the liberals and the conservatives in the different countries. Can be like opposing members of the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls, because they can operate very quickly in the Earth environment, either with their spacecrafts, their physical spacecrafts, or as souls. Now, I don't know how fast souls can move. I don't understand that. Whether they can, and how much altitude they can get. The next level can restrict that to the degree that they want to. I think that's what's called the three heavens. The first heaven being the spirit world in the atmosphere, within the atmosphere of the Earth, which can actually be a spacecraft, part of it. That's the next level spacecraft. That's actually dense physical, but it knows how to mask its visibility from humans and human instrumentation, and also provide ways for human airplanes and things to go through it. Or just not allow humans to follow certain pathways. I just had the thought when I was saying that, when I was thinking that, before I said it, that I wonder if that, like the way the jet stream is designed, the jet stream, I think, starts kind of maybe even in something. I think it varies, if I remember correctly, from like British Columbia area of Canada down to California even. It can vary, but maybe not even as far as Southern California. I'm not sure exactly, but then goes east, and then ends up like going in an arc, right? And a big wave, and comes out into different places in the East Coast. That stream. So looking at it that way, that arc sometimes might be even going over something that the next level. And maybe most of the flights that take place are going along that pattern. I think they do have their wind patterns that they follow to get maximum or minimum drag and all that. But the next level could have designed it to happen in a certain way so that the humans would grow to use that navigation system. I'm pretty sure humans don't just go any old place with their airliners. Maybe the Air Force does more of that. I don't know if the TNO did say that the next level spacecraft could be on top of a house that we were calling our spacecraft. And the members of the next level could be in it that are physical, that if we but know how to remain invisible to us. And it's a part of the function of the vehicle to be able to become invisible. Just like it's a part of the function of the vehicle to run, if the vehicle wants to. I'm not sure that's the best example, but I don't remember TNO giving us an example. But I think of it that way. So it doesn't feel wrong to me. I'm trying to stay in tune with TNO's mind as I talk, but I'm not consciously thinking that. But that is my intention, that they will correct me if I say anything that's off track. And I've seen a lot of that correction come, but doesn't mean that I'm always receptive to it. But so I mean, you can't take it to the bank when I do that. And when you're passing on things to other people, I think it's best to stick to mostly what TNO said. I think that might be the best way to say it. I mean, if you learn something like I learned, like I thought I learned today, that there was a near-miss asteroid, I thought, wow, I missed this. And I checked all my emails, for my feeds and all. Spaceweather.com and all that. I mean, if it's something like that, I don't think there's anything wrong with, quoting me. But I don't know. I'm getting off the track, because. But I received criticism on this regard, and I don't deny the value of that criticism. But usually it takes me a little time sometimes to see the value of it. So we can learn from everything. I'm going to go back to the chat room, and right. Oh, it was 77? Terry Hopper says in the chat room. It wasn't 70 times 7? It was 7 times 77? Oh, okay. I'm going to have to go back and look at that. See how I got that. So Falcon then says, do you think there is a way to communicate with these vehicles? You mean the next level vehicles? The spacecrafts? Well, yes, through TNO's mind. Through getting to know what TNO were saying in the writings and in their tapes. That's the way to communicate with TNO. And ask them for help. To have more energy, to have service, ask for service. I asked them to make you putty in their hands. These are all the things that TNO gave us as ways to think about relating with the next level. And they didn't say, But when we were with them, then we wouldn't ask questions to the next level above human that's not incarnate, the members. We would write a question down. We had a way of doing that. We don't have that way now. So now is the time where people can ask questions by directing their question to the highest source of truth that they can imagine existing in the deepest heavens. That's the way Tiendo initially talked about it. So that it's out of reach of the space aliens and the discarnates that would try to be our Tiendo for us. Now, I don't know if Tiendo's name is protected by the next level, so that like the Jesus word is meaningless now to trying to talk to the real Jesus. I shouldn't say meaningless. The next level maybe they do still pay attention with their computer programs to people that are calling on the name of Jesus. Just in case there's somebody that is still open to growing, but might have been brainwashed by the Christian depiction of Jesus, which is, John 3:16, that, believing on him means that you don't got to do anything. You just got to believe and you get the reward. Which there's a degree of truth to. This is where the 50% comes in. And especially for that time, it was probably more appropriate because Jesus was talking to people that were potential graduate students, and he was also talking to people that were coming up in their grade in school, in the 12 grades in school, and were approaching to even becoming graduate students. But if Christians want to become disciples of Jesus, become students, then they have to deny themselves, take up the cross, and follow him. And of course, they can't follow him literally right now because he's not in a vehicle. But that's what has to happen when that individual makes himself known to us, when we're in a situation in the future to where we're in an incarnation in Earth, a soul trying to take over a human vehicle that was prepared by giving it another type of soul for a returnee. They said there were more than one types of souls that have different programs in them that help us with the recognition of the next level and that retain everything we learned before. That's in the soul that's returning to take over a vehicle that was implanted with a soul for that soul to take over. And it becomes a merger of souls. It doesn't become two souls. Like Tiendo would say, get your mind in your vehicle. Meant those souls needed to get inside that vehicle that they were trying to take over like a horse, is the depiction that Doe used for one of the examples in 1994 in the tapes. I can feel my consciousness, my focus fading. It's natural for this to take energy, because Tiendo information is stronger than human information. And so even if we're just, reminiscing about it, if you want to look at it that way, that I do when I think about the things that Tiendo said, Tiendo's mind comes. It's got energy to it. It's not just. It's living. In other words, it's vibrant. It's got a frequency to it that's higher than the human frequencies. I'm gonna go back to the chat room, even though I'm sure I left some loose ends there. But communication with them, what you get back is, I do need to talk to that a little bit. I'm going to talk about the ways that we're not going to receive communication back. It's not going to be like a strong voice in our head. I mean, even a thought in our heads, some people could call a voice, okay? But there's a difference between, we know the kind of thoughts we normally have. Now, there can be influences that can come on into us that can give us thoughts that we normally don't have, but are still human influences. So, but we do know in general most of the thoughts that we normally have, okay? And so we can get new thoughts from the internet, from other people, and things like that, okay? But we can recognize them as a certain kind of thought. They all have the same kind of frequency. That's the way I think about it. But the next level can send us a thought that's in a different frequency, so that it's a very subtle kind of voice. You can tell that it's different from the other thoughts that we have. And it's got dimension to it. It's like, it's got substance to it. It's like, it's a picture. It's not just words. And so that picture can actually be Doe's face. In our eyes, if we became familiar with Doe's face. If we didn't become familiar with Doe's face, then Doe's face, seeing that, would just look like a stranger, I think, to somebody else. And humans may end up having Doe's vehicle's face. When I say Doe's face, I'm talking about the Marshall Applewhite face. From any point during the time that he was public. So even, what he looked in his depiction in 1996 and 7, which you can see on the screen there in the top right corner. That's Doe depicting himself as having other older members above him in the chain of mind into the next level, to the Chief of Chiefs. That's why Jesus said that he and his Father are one. So right now, that's depicting 3 generations. I just realized that picture showed 3 generations operating at the same time. Father, son, and student. So to us, Doe is also a father, so he's our Heavenly Father right now. So you can talk to him, but I'd use the words Tiendo, and I'd imagine them as the vehicles that they have in our heads. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think it's a good idea to like take one of the pictures and like meditate on that picture, but it might be okay for now because we still have access to know that those vehicles are the same vehicles in that photograph that are in the tapes, in the Beyond Human tapes. And T's vehicle is a little bit, well, we don't have any video of T, do we? But we do have photographs of T before she took over a vehicle, before T took over the human vehicle, Bonnie Nettles, Bonnie Lou Truesdale Nettles. It was the full name she had. But I think the Truesdale was her husband's name, vehicle's husband's name. Because T wasn't married. T was married to T's older member. And T and O did talk about that T had an older member. So T wasn't the chief of chiefs. But Doe said that T was the chief administrator of the earth. Now, I don't know if that's the same thing as being a chief directly under the chief of chiefs in that hierarchical structure. And Doe taught that T was his older member, and therefore, and that T didn't bring her entire mind to do this task, and could have other vehicles, could have more than one vehicle, that the mind had grown to be able to perform through, to do tasks through, to be of service through, to help T's older member. It doesn't hurt us to all reflect on the fact that the next level designed everything, but they designed things to evolve. Even the evolution is part of the design. The Big Bangs are part of the design. So the humans are not wrong about things, right? But they don't see the whole picture. They see, some humans see more than others, of course. And I'm a human that was given so much that to not see it anymore would mean that I kind of had to flush it out of my brain, which is possible. But if we keep thinking about it and keep talking about it and keep reading about it and keep watching the videos and listening to the tapes, then the more we're getting T and Do's mind in us. And having that mind in us then gives us the strength to be able to conquer our addictions and our behaviors and ways and change the behaviors and ways that are not part of the program to take with us as members of the next level. So we want to fortify the behaviors and ways that the next level provides us, and diminish the misinformation mind, increasing so that our balloon, so to speak, our soul balloon, is filled with only next level information, or at least 51%. So that it's our next level mind that's making the choices for what we do with our vehicles. And Doe talked about it as 51% in the Beyond Human tapes. I know I repeat myself every time I do one of these live streams, and I in some ways I apologize, but other ways I think there's always potentially a new person, and I want to give them the best shot that I can give them to see the different facets of Tiando's mind and teachings. The way that they were like flexible, but thorough. They were against gossip. If you had something to say about somebody, it'd be worth saying to them to their face. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't circumstances to where it's better to not say anything to somebody. I don't remember Tiando really addressing that issue, but Jesus addressed it by saying, agree with your adversary. Agree with the adversary. Now, that's not saying agree with Satan, because even though Satan can be translated to an adversary, it's a different word. And a lot of times, there are a number of Greek words used with the same English meaning, which is kind of like a way that it kind of distorts the truth by doing that. So when we are trying to communicate with Tiandos in Tiando's craft, we wouldn't talk to the craft, because that would be like saying that there's no pilot. It's a remote controlled, automatic, a robot. Because the craft might be programmed, to have a bunch of functions the same way humans can be programmed to have a whole bunch of functions. And it can have many things it's able to do. It can be a very intricate, I imagine that can be an intricate kind of task. But we have to get through the birth canal before we can get tasks like that. And that's what is happening right now. The birth canal is still opened. And the way is by adopting all the behaviors and ways and believing that Tiando came from the kingdom level that created the earth and all its life forms, and to stand up for them and separate from our human attachments. Which doesn't necessarily all happen at once, and it's according to each individual's own sense of whether they're able to grow towards Tiando's mind, where in the circumstance they're in. In other words, if, like what happened with me is I wasn't able to write because I had so many responsibilities, because my partner was seeing me as somebody that was, putting my all into the family of two daughters, a stepdaughter and a biological daughter, and the house and the maintenance on the house and the business or businesses, and so that's when I started to have big problems, which I talked about in a previous live stream. And as a result, she broke up with me and moved someplace else. I'm not going to give you the long story of that. and so that enabled me to then work full time on, or close to full time, on Tiendo information, and trying to deliver it to people and through all the different social media platforms that I can. And in person at times. I was going to show the briefing. Let me go back to that since I did bring it up. I'm getting to the 2-hour mark, and I'm not going to be able to go too much longer. I know I didn't get to the rest of the questions, but I do want to try to breach new areas. So I'm looking for that program. Where is it? There it is. Okay. So if we go over to Revelation 5, I think it was. It was 4. I'm going to go to 4. But let me look at this also here. I'm going to search on round. And search the Revelation book. No, that's the Revelation book. Okay, so it's Revelation 4. Yeah, this is good. So, okay, so I'm gonna start reading from Revelation chapter 4. Start with, and let me put it on the screen for you all better than I did there, and put that up there in case I go through certain words. All right, so it says, after this I looked, and behold, a door opened in heaven. Because that's one event. And first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me. Okay, now that seems to be well, that can be like two different events, separated by time, even a lot of time. And which said, come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. Okay, so now I guess we need to establish who's speaking. Revelation 3. Well, it's well, they're talking about the Lamb in this part of the Revelation. So I don't want to get too distracted by trying to go through every word here, which I have done that sometimes. But the door opened in heaven. When I saw that, I thought, I wonder if that's like depicting the briefing that Tiendo called the briefing, that remembered. T remembered the briefing before she left her vehicle at some point. I'm not saying how close before that she left her vehicle, but and in that briefing, they were on a spacecraft they hadn't come yet incarnate, and there were some individuals that had physical bodies, and then there were some individuals that did not. Around the outside of them were the ones that did not. But anyway, so with that in mind, he says, and immediately, the next verse, 2, is immediately I was in spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven. And sat on the throne. Sounds like the older members there. And he that sat was to look upon like jasper and sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto emerald. Okay, now the way they use jewels to describe the New Jerusalem is they use jewels to describe the different walls and floor and ceiling of the New Jerusalem spacecraft. So that's why I'm relating to that here. So they're describing a spacecraft, I believe. And then it says, and round about, which is, it's in black because the word is actually translated to all around or round about. So and round about the throne were 24 seats. And upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting clothed in white garments, white raiment. That word can also be garment, I believe. And they had on their heads crowns of gold. So the 24 already had crowns of gold. So I think they're the ones that gave the souls that gave their lives to Jesus' service 2,000 years ago. That would be a crown, and they received the next level vehicle because of that. So in the briefing, they would have been the ones, I imagine, that were the next level vehicles that were still students, but they were elder students, 24. And we were down to the number 24 right before we started to have some students come back into the classroom. In that would have been 1992. So they're clothed in white raiment. In other words, they've washed their robes. They've they've swept out their human house of its humanness, of its mammalian characteristics, of its desire to reproduce or propagate, of its desire to become successful in some way in the human kingdom. And they had on their heads crowns of gold. In other words, their head, had become a next level mind. Because gold means purifying. The gold is what he said was happening in the body changes that were happening within us, within our vehicles, by growing towards absorbing and applying all Tiando's information. It's just taken a lot of work to try to get this out. And I'm losing my energy. So I think this is depicting the briefing. I could be wrong about that. I know that everything in the book of Revelations can't be considered to be 100% accurate in the way that John didn't get a lot of it right, or not. He didn't say a lot of it. Didn't get some things right. Doe said that. See, that's where I could have thrown my own a lot in there, exaggerating a little bit. That's what we need to watch out for. Once we read that Tiando said this or that, or quote even the students, said this and that, we can count on what the students wrote in the Heaven's Gate book as being accurate and well said and developed, and what Doe would approve of, because he probably did approve of them. He used to read a lot of the ones when we all had a task, not all of us, but the ones that wanted to all had a task to write. I was one of those individuals. But I learned I wasn't a very good writer. So when I'm criticized for that, I know it's got merit. Though I think I've changed and got a little better. But then again, when I go back to the things I wrote, I can, see how sloppy I was. Anyway, there's nothing wrong with knowing somebody, knowing their weaknesses, but not holding themselves back because of it, not dwelling in it, and not being down in the mouth about it, is the way Doe said it. And trying to do something about it, not necessarily related to the human characteristic that might not be done that well, but related to overall separation from the human kingdom in our mind and behavior and ways. Okay, let's see here. I'll go back to the chat room, but I'm going to try to, I don't want to short circuit anything. Good evening, Jeff. Hi, Cheyenne. Oh, okay. Cheyenne Rose. Okay, but first, CPEP Linksky 222 says, I need to get to the higher level. Well, the way to do that is by offering your service to the next level, to Tiendo in particular, not just the next level, because Tiendo are the ones that are assigned to take on new students. And get familiar with everything they taught. It's going to take a while for that to happen, but we've got time right now. I'm not saying you have to listen to every tape, because there's 196 audio tapes, and there's a handful of videotapes. I mean, actually more than that. There's maybe 12 or so videotapes. Well, counting the Beyond Human tapes, there's more than that, of course. I said that backwards. Counting the tapes beyond Human tapes. And there's the Heaven's Gate book that is free and available. And if anybody wants me to send them a packet of 4 gigabytes worth of data that's zipped into a little less than 4 gigabytes, then send me an email address. Send it to Sawyer HG. I posted it in the chat room. SawyerHG@yahoo.com. Or tell me in some way and I'll copy it. So then, and then when you start to feel like the next level is, when you're feeling like you want a new step, then ask the next level, is there any way they can speed it up, and so you can get the next step, and they'll give you opportunities to. You might open up the newspaper and feel like, you know what, I'm going to go visit that place over there. I'm going to go see that movie. But, do I really want to? But it might be a movie that has your interest in it. And so you're going to the movie and you meet somebody and get to talking on the line outside of it, if there is one. And all of a sudden the topic of Heaven's Gate comes up. And you get a chance to actually say, well, you know what? They might have been exactly who they said they were from this next level above human, this evolutionary level above human. Get familiar with the keywords, because we need to be of service. It's not the time to go run into the cave of a mountain and think that we can just overcome the human kingdom by not engaging it. But we will try to cut ourselves off from engaging in human behaviors, including sexuality and addictions to different substances, and or even strong habits to partake in certain substances, and relationships with others. How much time we give to individuals that were even our vehicle's kids. If you're not being interfered with where you live, then maybe you can do that. You can do this from where you live. Doesn't mean you have to become a recluse. And the next level members also had fun. Went to movies. Played some sports. Informally. Like badminton. and tennis, and a little running on the track for people that wanted to get that exercise at the same time. And you will accelerate growth towards the next level as you conquer things, as you make headway over, not talking about the past, not thinking about the past. I mean, tying up loose ends in the past before you do that, so that there's nobody that really wants you to find you for any reason. That is if you end up moving away to someplace else, which may come to that for all of us, potentially, from whatever our comfortable situations are, if we have one. Then Cheyenne Rose says, I was very young when Hail Bop came. Was that the only way to the next level? Have we all missed it? I recently discovered Heaven's Gate and you. No, you haven't missed it. I mean, you missed the bus, that bus, into wherever they were going to. But that didn't mean that we can't catch the next bus. And the next bus is scheduled to come before the recycling, from everything I can tell from what Doe taught. And he didn't talk in those terms that the next bus would come during the recycling, but he said the gate was still open. But that some will be saved for a future opportunity. Put on ice is the way he talked about that, but not literal ice. Well, I guess you've been here if you're still listening to this broadcast, then you heard the other things I tried to cover in terms of what to do now. What's the fastest we can grow? And that is, I just kind of talked about some of it. And asking the next level to grow, help me grow as fast as I can. And they won't hold you back. I mean, everybody's not going to be ready to take big steps necessarily at the same time. But they don't want to discourage anybody from taking a big step. Of even changing their residence, and I'm not saying that's a necessary step, but that would be an example of a step that somebody could take if the circumstance they were in was too hard to live by the T&O rules in the major and minor and lesser offense list and the 17 steps. Okay, I go back to the chat room. I'm holding here. Jeff says maybe in the next human kingdom experiment. Well, right. If you're saved for a future opportunity, then you would be brought back during the next human kingdom experiment. That's right. There is no class, right? Jeff is saying, trying to answer the question for the person, and that's fine to do. I don't have any problem with that. There is no class right now. It can't be ruled out, but seems unlikely. Unlikely that a person couldn't go through the gate? I don't think so. I don't think that's. I think I could be wrong, but I think Doe would encourage people to uh, shoot for the highest they can shoot for. They said that you could even pass up your older member in growth. And they didn't leave this information behind so that it would be just sat on. So I don't think it's unlikely. And Charlie Rose says, so you need to have a teacher, guide. Yes, the teacher is Tiendo. Even though they're outside their vehicle, all their information is still here. That becomes your teacher. And you can watch that on the internet. You can watch it in your own home. It doesn't cost anything. I send the packets out that have the audios on them. You can get the audios from other locations. You can sample them on my live streams. So you get familiar with Tiendo's voices and how they talk and how they worked with one another and how they related to the students. Because it's all in plain sight. They created like over 400 tapes of internal meetings. So but only 196 are available. That's a long story. But they are available. Then Jeff says, an older member. Doe mentions 3 types of individuals who can graduate in the video Planet Earth About to Be Recycled. Excellent reference. And some of those individuals never even heard about Tiendo, but were separating from their humanness or the human activities in their own way. And he even used an example of a militia group, but he said that that's not condoning violence, but just to demonstrate how a militia group is against the government. It doesn't mean that being against the government means that we're protesting against the government. No, we don't. We want to get along with our adversaries so that we can continue to do this task for as long as possible. We need our vehicles to do the task. There's no suicide in the future for us. I'm not saying that couldn't be appropriate for somebody, but that would be a long shot, I think, at this point. To my opinion, that is an unlikelihood that anybody right now is ready for that. I mean, if we think we've conquered everything in the human kingdom, then definitely go list. Well, no matter what you think, if that's what's on your mind, then definitely read the Heaven's Gate book and see what those major and minor offense lists are, and see how they can improve all those things. Because even if you got them down, you can improve upon them by not being a sexual creature anymore, not allowing those thoughts in our heads, but relating with people on the internet, standing up for Tiendo on the internet. It'll bring some people that once your friends are going to think that you flew off the coop. So that rejection ends up happening. And that rejection is part of separating from the human kingdom. Theoretically, you could be totally happy just having a relationship with your older member, being the only human you have a friendship with. I'm not saying that you can't have other friends. There's no can'ts or cans, really. It's what people want to do, but to move as fast as possible, you're not going to gravitate to being with individuals that are a downer, or that are going to try to talk you out of it, or that are stimulating you to want to be sensuous or sexual, or any of those kind of things and more. And that's the value of being someplace on our own. That the telephone's not going to ring. But then again, since our task is to talk to people, I think we'd want to be thorough about it, to share Tiendo's information. And that could actually become, talking to groups of individuals in person. But the thing about the internet is that it's so many more people are available that are interested in this because they've been seeking for a long time. It's not going to be for everybody, but when more things happen in the world, new individuals that became students of Tiendo, I think a lot of them will remember meeting that person who was like 6 people at once. The kind of way that's the 24 are depicted to have vehicles that have 24 parts to them. Let's see, what else is there? Yeah, the reason I'm so fidgety is because I'm so tired. So I have to kind of move around in order to keep my vehicle from slumping over. But I'm trying to push through it, though. But I can't sleep in the morning too late, so I don't want to get just 6 hours of rest. So then Cheyenne says, thank you for the info. I'd like to find out as much as I can. When I say recently discovered them, I mean it, but want to learn more. Then Cheyenne says, like a spiritual pause button. Okay. Cheyenne says, I would love to have the tapes. Are they also available on the website? No, there are some tapes available on the Heaven's Gate website, but the audio tapes are not available there. They're available on ForShared as individual ones to download, and some of them are available in my live streams that are posted on this channel. And the ones from 1994 are all posted on ForShared and on my channel. And then the ones from 1982 to 1985, the 196 of those are posted, or no, 100, maybe it's just 190 of them. I'm not sure exactly what the number is. Are what I could send you to an email address. Weave Soliki. Let me go back. I'd love to hear the tapes available on the website. Of your unable to always be perfect follower, will you not be able to get to the next level? That's my point. Don't assume anything. Just get started on it, and take the attitude that you can conquer everything with next level's help. When you're having a problem, ask Tienjo project to Tiendo's minds on a spacecraft in the deep heavens. It's important to get it away from the planet as far as possible with your communications, and then assume that they will show you and give you the help to conquer all your human behaviors at a pace that you can handle. But the pace can be cold turkey on a lot of them. And I mean, for some people, it might mean thinking, you know what, I've got to go to rehab. I got to get off this substance. To other people, it might be like, you know what, I'm in this terrible relationship that doesn't respect me, and I'm not going to put up with it anymore. So I'm leaving. Or I'm going to tell them that I want to change into a platonic relationship. If you can do that, and still stay in the same area. Like, let's say you have kids or something, and you want to support your family, then that would be a way of working for the next level while you're supporting your family. I mean, you have to know the formula is that when the older member comes around and says it's time to follow me, to go into that, to get the college course from the high school course, and that you have to leave everything behind. You have to know that that's the formula. That's important, because then when you're a soul and you've been saved by the next level for a future opportunity, because it takes more than one lifetime to learn these lessons. And it doesn't mean that you're not ready for the ultimate lessons, but you can be. But so when the older member comes incarnate again, and they prepare and bring you back to that circumstance and prepare a vehicle for you to take over so that you can get your mind, everything you learned up until that point, into that vehicle. And the vehicle's been helped to receive that by the next level, taking care of that before the vehicle's even birthed. But, well, I just have this thought that, I don't want to get off this, though. So I'll bring that up another time. I'll write it down. Okay. You'll have ideas. In other words, once we make ourselves available to the next level, to want to be there in their service, to want to learn all the lessons, to want to separate from our humanness, then it's a matter of doing it, and at the pace that we choose. We all take it at our own pace. And it doesn't have to match anybody else. There's no competition. Nobody's the judge of anybody else and whether they're doing better or worse, because the lessons come in different ways. And we all have things that we've conquered and things that we haven't. So I tell you, if you're unable to always be a perfect follower. Right, so, well, you're going to have to become perfect enough to actually get a task working on a crew in the next level. But to be saved, isn't a task. You put on ice, but it's not literal ice, cold ice. But that's just the way Doe said it. And sometimes he said things in a humorous or tongue-in-cheek way, like not really tongue-in-cheek, but in a humorous way, in a silly way, innocent examples that aren't putting anybody else down. Next level members don't do that to anybody. They will correct people, but they won't disrespect anybody. And Black Sun says, Thomas, whoops. Yeah, I don't know what that is. We've Soieke. I don't know what that word is. So Black Sun says, what did Tiendo think about earthly, worldly classrooms at all, such as college? Okay. Well, it's not going to be exactly maybe what you were thinking you were asking, but they thought that there should be a standard and going to school to learn how to raise children, because they felt like humans that have children don't know the hill beans about how to raise them to be healthy new children, to become healthy adults initially. And so that's one example of something they said. Let's see, another one. And after this, if there's no more questions, I'm going to end the live stream. But so I didn't get to some of the things I wanted to get to. I never do, seems like. Well, I get to some sometimes. So let me think here a second before I... Okay. Well, they said that everything in the human kingdom was opportunity. And but it's opportunity to get into the human kingdom or out of the human kingdom. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, with school, but there is school outside of the human classrooms. That's I think a better school to enroll in. One that has more opportunity in it, because in the human schools, you're only going to get primarily humanness. And it's not that humanness is bad, but it doesn't compare to the next level mind, next level environments, next level laboratories, next level spacecrafts, next level physicality, and all those things. And their spirituality in terms of being, what's the content of their mind, and then in frequencies in terms of the way they transmit to the human kingdom to help the entire strains of human genetics. That forms the school of the human kingdom. Then Black Sun says, earthly, worldly classrooms at all. Yeah, I mean, Tiendo didn't tell people what to do and what not to do. And there is no classroom right now. And they did say in the book that that classroom experience was not offered anymore. They first said that, I believe, well, I don't know when they first said that, actually. I don't remember what the date of that document was. Um, so duplicating their environment and all that isn't the classroom now. The classroom now is learning Tiendo's information and standing up for them at some point. Working up to that, because it can be very hard to do that, because people think you're crazy sometimes, and they think you're evil sometimes, and and they don't hear what you say. Sometimes they block you, or they block you from a chat room, or they say all kinds of foul things to you, even potentially threaten you. I was only threatened once in a very mild way. The person said, well, actually, I was threatened a couple times. One person said, who was an ex-classmate, said, you should be stopped. And I don't know if they intended to try to instigate that. Stop from talking about what my experiences are. This is someone that believes in Tiendo. So it's kind of bizarre. Because I embellish sometimes, really what I'm doing is providing soup and a sandwich. Not just soup. But that's not the best example, because my sandwich doesn't compare to the soup. It's like one is a banquet for thousands of people, and the other one is snack crackers. Compared to to what I put into this, compared to what Tiendo put into it. My silly analogies. When we were in the world, working jobs in the world, we did go to the schools, and when the job requirement was to take a class. So that's something else I can say about classrooms in the world. And so if you need to do it to make sticks meaning money, then by all means, if you're not terribly compromising your behaviors, then I would think that a lot of things are still available through the channels of the way that I'm looking for something, but wow, I'm tired now. I can't think off the top of my head of anything else. Well, except that that the best education you can get is from the next level's representatives, at this time especially, because there's not a lot of time left before recycling is underway, more than it is now, much more. So I guess with that said, I'm going to say goodnight. Whoever's left here. I hope to see you again.